"Daddy, buy the sad fat lady?" 3-year-old begged. The mountain man's heart stopped when he saw her face. Wind skimmed across Millbrook's clapboard roofs as the Saturday crowd flooded the square, cowhands trading wages for whiskey, matrons bartering flour for lace, boys hanging like sparrows from wagon rails. Gabriel Gabe Morrison should have kept walking. He hated crowds, hated the way they stared at the big man from Cedar Ridge as if grief were a stain that wouldn't wash out. But his 3-year-old Emma rode his shoulders with both fists tangled in his hair and a joy he couldn't deny. They were halfway past the auction block when the laughter hit, sharp, dirty, delighted by someone else's shame. On the platform stood a young woman in a washed, thin dress, cheeks blotched from cold and humiliation. She was round-hipped, soft through the shoulders, her honey-gold hair pinned in a losing battle, eyes the exact green Gabe had spent 2 years trying not to remember. "Who'll start me at 200 for the debtor's daughter?" the auctioneer crowed. "She's strong enough to scrub a hotel floor and eat half the pantry doing it." Men jeered, a boot scraped, someone mooed. The woman, Lily Rose Whitmore, kept her chin up until the word heifer broke against her like a wave. Then her eyes filled and the world narrowed to the shine of those tears. Emma leaned low, breath warm against Gabe's ear. "Daddy," she whispered, small and certain, "the lady is sad like Mommy." He swallowed sand. "We're moving on, Bug." But Emma slid off his shoulders before he could catch her. She ran, pigtails flying, little boots drumming the planks, and planted herself at the foot of the block, head tipped back, voice bright and bell clear. "Don't cry. My daddy will buy you." The square went silent. The auctioneer blinked. Lily's lips parted in stunned disbelief. Gabe stepped forward, pulse hammering, and when the woman turned, when that familiar kindness looked out of a stranger's face, his heart missed and then found itself again. 1,000, he said, voice like a rifle shot over snow. "Cash." Gasps rippled. The gavel trembled, and somewhere behind all the noise, a little girl smiled as if she'd just put the sun back in the sky. The laughter followed them all the way to the edge of town, a mixture of disbelief and mockery that Gabe ignored with the same stoic silence he'd worn since the day Sarah died. He lifted Lily up onto the wagon bench beside Emma, checked the mule's harness, and clucked them forward. Snow had begun to fall, slow, drifting flakes that softened the sound of wheels and hoofbeats. For a long while, no one spoke. Lily sat stiffly, her hands clasped tight in her lap, afraid to even breathe too loud. She could feel the eyes of the mountain man beside her, not cruel, but unreadable. His shoulders looked carved from granite, his jaw lost beneath a short beard, and his coat smelled faintly of pine and smoke. Finally, Emma broke the silence. "Lily, Mommy," she said brightly, "do you like rabbits?" Gabe's hand twitched on the reins. "Emma." "What? She does look like a mommy," Emma insisted. "And we have rabbits on the mountain. Daddy lets me feed them if I'm careful." Lily smiled faintly, the first hint of warmth since the square. "I love rabbits," she said softly. "Maybe you can show me." Emma grinned wide and leaned against her. "Then you can stay forever." Lily's smile faltered. "Sweetheart, people like me don't stay forever anywhere." Gabe turned his head, eyes catching hers for the first time. "You're safe now," he said simply. "As long as you're under my roof, no one touches you." The weight of that promise hung in the cold air, heavy, absolute, and strangely comforting. By the time they reached Cedar Ridge, the snow had thickened into a white curtain. Lily gasped when she saw the cabin. It wasn't large, but it stood strong and square beneath the tall pines, its windows glowing gold against the gray. A fence circled the yard, and smoke curled from a stone chimney that smelled of cedar wood and home. "You built this yourself?" she asked. Gabe nodded as he unloaded supplies. "After Sarah passed, I needed something to keep my hands busy. Guess I built it for her, even if she'll never live in it." Lily hesitated on the porch, afraid to step into someone else's ghost. He caught her look. "Sarah's gone, Miss Whitmore. You don't have to tiptoe." Inside, warmth wrapped around her like a blanket. The cabin was clean, neat, and full of small signs of love. Emma's drawings pinned to the wall, a handmade cradle by the fire, a faded shawl draped over the chair that must have been Sarah's. Lily felt something twist inside her chest. Envy, grief, and wonder tangled together. "This'll be your room," Gabe said, opening a small door at the back. "It used to be the pantry, not much, but it's warm." "It's perfect," Lily whispered. "Thank you." Emma tugged her hand. "Can you sing, Lily, Mommy? Daddy can't sing." Gabe gave a quiet, embarrassed grunt. "She's right. My voice scares coyotes off the ridge." Lily laughed, a soft, shaky sound that filled the cabin with something new. She sat by the fire, pulled Emma into her lap, and began to hum. The melody was simple, an old lullaby she half remembered, but Gabe froze in the doorway. It was the same tune Sarah used to sing when Emma was a baby. His throat closed. For a moment, he wanted to stop it, to silence the ache it brought. But instead, he leaned against the door frame and listened, because for the first time in 2 years, the cabin didn't sound like grief. It sounded like home. That night, when Emma was asleep and Lily's candle had burned low, Gabe stood outside under the stars. The snow had stopped. The forest was silent except for the steady beat of his own heart. He thought of Lily's tears on the auction block. He thought of Sarah's smile fading into memory. And he thought of the little girl who had looked at a stranger and seen a family. "Maybe," he murmured to the night, "God still knows what he's doing." Morning came softly to Cedar Ridge. The sun filtered through the pine needles, painting thin gold lines across the snow. Lily woke to the sound of chopping wood and the faint hum of a child's laughter outside. For a brief, confusing second, she didn't remember where she was, only that it was warm and that the air smelled like bread baking. Then the memories came rushing back. The auction, the humiliation, the terrifying kindness of the man who'd bought her freedom, and the little girl who'd called her Mommy without hesitation. Lily sat up, brushed the sleep from her eyes, and found a folded flannel shirt at the foot of her bed. A note was tucked beneath it, written in a rough, careful hand. "This shirt should fit better than the dress. There's breakfast on the stove. GM." She smiled, the first real unguarded smile in years. Outside, Gabe was splitting logs behind the cabin, his breath rising in white clouds. Each swing of the axe was deliberate, precise, a rhythm that had become prayer. He didn't hear Lily approach until Emma squealed, "Lily, Mommy's awake," and threw herself into her arms. Lily laughed as the little girl buried her face in her skirt. "Emma, you'll get snow all over me." "That's okay. Daddy says you like warm fires. I'll melt it for you." Gabe looked up. The sight caught him off guard again. Lily in borrowed flannel and a shawl too small, hair tumbling free, cheeks pink from the cold. For a heartbeat, she looked like Sarah. Then she smiled, and the resemblance shattered. This woman wasn't fragile. There was strength in her softness, quiet and enduring. "Morning," she said. "Morning," he replied, awkwardly setting the axe aside. "Hope the room was warm enough." "It was perfect," she said gently. "And the breakfast. You cook better than you think." He rubbed the back of his neck, embarrassed. "Don't let Emma hear that, or I'll have to start baking pies." "Daddy can't bake," Emma giggled. "He burns biscuits every time." Lily laughed again, and Gabe felt the sound settle somewhere deep in his chest where grief used to live. Over the next few weeks, a quiet rhythm took root in the cabin. Lily cooked and cleaned with an energy born of gratitude. Gabe hunted, fixed the roof, and mended the fence. Emma shadowed them both, her laughter ringing through the valley like wind chimes. Every evening they gathered by the fire. Emma would draw or play with her dolls while Gabe carved small animals out of wood. Lily often sat sewing beside him, humming under her breath. Sometimes the same lullaby that used to haunt his dreams. At first, Gabe had tried to keep his distance. She was only here because of Emma's mercy, he told himself. But he found excuses to linger near her anyway, to ask about the stew, or to hand her tools she hadn't asked for, or to watch the light catch her hair when she leaned toward the fire. And Lily, for her part, began to see through his silence. She noticed the way he spoke softly to Emma, the care in every movement, the weariness in his eyes when he thought no one was looking. She knew that kind of sorrow. She had lived it. One evening, as snow fell thick and heavy outside, Gabe asked the question he'd been avoiding. "Lily, what happens when spring comes, when the road clears?" She looked up, startled. "Do you want me to leave?" He hesitated. "I don't want you trapped here because you feel you owe me something." Lily's gaze softened. "I don't feel trapped, Gabe. I feel found." The words landed like a stone in still water. He didn't answer, but his eyes said what his mouth couldn't. "So do I." Weeks passed. Snow began to melt, trickling down from the peaks. The forest came alive again, birds returning, buds pushing through frost. Gabe watched Lily hanging laundry one afternoon, her laughter mingling with Emma's as they tried to catch falling drops of water from the eaves. Something inside him shifted. It wasn't the sharp ache of remembering Sarah anymore. It was gentler, quieter, like the mountain itself had forgiven him for surviving. That night, while Emma slept, he lingered by the fire as Lily finished mending one of his shirts. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" "For all this. The cooking, the noise, the way the house doesn't sound empty anymore." Lily looked at him for a long moment, her eyes shining in the firelight. "You don't have to thank me for loving what's already good." Gabe blinked, the words catching him off guard. "Good?" She smiled faintly. "Yes, you and Emma. You're good people, Gabe Morrison, the kind who save someone they don't even know." He swallowed hard. "Emma saved you? I just followed her lead." Lily's voice softened. "Then maybe she takes after her father." The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was full, a heartbeat waiting to become something more. Outside, the snow was still melting, whispering its way down the mountain. Inside, two lonely souls began to thaw. By April, Cedar Ridge had shrugged off its winter coat. The snow retreated into the shadows of the pines, and the cabin came alive with sound. The cluck of hens in the yard, the steady hum of bees, the giggle of a child somewhere between laughter and song. Lily had filled the small clearing with life. She planted wildflowers near the fence, hung laundry that smelled of pine and sunlight, and taught Emma to bake bread in a cast-iron pot so heavy the girl could barely lift it. The air was full of warmth again, not just from the fire, but from the gentle rhythm of belonging. Gabe came in from the forest one morning carrying a fresh haul of firewood. Lily was at the table with Emma, showing her how to braid dough. Her hair was tied up messily, a loose strand curling against her cheek, and flour dusted her hands like snow. Emma saw him first. "Daddy, Lily Mommy says I can make bread all by myself." Gabe raised an eyebrow, amused. "Is that right?" Lily looked up, smiling. "She's determined. I think she's going to feed the whole mountain if I let her." He chuckled, a deep, quiet sound that made Lily's heart stutter. "Wouldn't be the worst thing." "Except she used all the flour," Lily teased. "I was practicing," Emma protested, her tiny hands on her hips. The laughter that followed was the kind that fills a house so completely it silences every ghost in it. For a brief, perfect moment, Gabe forgot that there had ever been silence here at all. That evening, the mountains blazed gold. Gabe fixed a loose shutter, while Lily hummed a tune by the fire. Emma was already asleep, curled up with her rag doll under the quilt Lily had mended by hand. "You never told me where you learned to do all this," Gabe said quietly. "Do what?" He gestured to the warm chaos of their home, the flowers, the smell of stew, the way even the light seemed softer now. "Make a place feel alive." Lily smiled faintly. "Maybe it's because I know what it's like when nothing does." He fell silent. After a moment, she added softly, "Before the auction, I used to dream about a little house like this, somewhere no one yelled, somewhere I could just be useful." "You're more than useful, Lily." Her breath caught. "Am I?" Gabe nodded, his voice low and rough. "You saved Emma, and me, whether you know it or not." For a long moment, neither of them looked away. The air between them felt fragile, charged, like the calm before a storm neither wanted to end. Then, to break it, Lily whispered, "You have a kind heart, Gabe Morrison." He smiled barely. "Don't tell the mountain that. It spent years trying to convince me otherwise." Spring rain came that night, tapping gently on the roof. The fire popped in the hearth, and Lily moved around the kitchen with a rhythm Gabe couldn't take his eyes off. She was humming again, that same tune Emma loved, soft and sweet and full of memory. When she turned, she caught him watching. "What is it?" "Nothing," he said quickly. Then, after a pause, "Everything." Her laugh was shy, but real. "You always talk like the mountain's still listening." "It is," he said, stepping closer. "It's just quieter when you're here." Something unspoken passed between them, a shared warmth, an ache neither of them dared name. For the first time since Sarah's death, Gabe didn't feel guilty for wanting to feel again. And Lily, once a girl humiliated on an auction block, realized she was being seen not as a burden, but as something cherished. Later that night, when Emma's soft breathing filled the cabin, Lily stepped onto the porch. The rain had stopped. The stars were reflected in puddles across the yard. Gabe joined her, holding 2 mugs of tea. "Can't sleep?" She shook her head. "Too quiet." He smiled. "You're the first person to call this mountain quiet." "It used to scare me," she admitted. "The silence, the dark, the thought that no one would come if I screamed." He looked at her, the weight of her words sinking in. "You're not alone anymore." She turned toward him, the moonlight catching the tears she didn't bother to hide. "I know." He hesitated, then reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. His fingers lingered a second too long. "Good night, Lily," he murmured. Her voice trembled. "Good night, Gabe." Inside, Emma stirred in her sleep and whispered, "Lily, Mommy." Outside, two souls who had forgotten how to love stood beneath a sky full of stars and began, quietly, to remember. The peace didn't last. It never does on the frontier. By late May, wildflowers blanketed the meadow outside the cabin, and Emma spent her days chasing butterflies while Lily hung laundry in the sun. Gabe's laughter had returned to his voice, low and genuine, the sound of a man slowly remembering how to live. But down in Millbrook, gossip had begun to stir. Someone had seen the fat girl from the auction disappear with the mountain man. Someone else said she'd bewitched him, that she was a thief on the run, hiding stolen money in her skirts. And soon, one voice louder than the rest decided to climb the ridge and bring her back. It happened one gray afternoon. Gabe was repairing the fence when he heard horses. By the time he reached the yard, two riders had dismounted. Sheriff Warren Pike and a tall, lean man in a fine coat. "Mr. Morrison," the sheriff called, "sorry to trouble you. We're looking for a woman named Lily Rose Whitmore." Gabe's eyes darkened. "Why?" The man beside the sheriff stepped forward, smirking. "Because she belongs to me." Lily had come to the porch, pale as frost. "Thomas," she whispered. The man grinned wider. "So you do remember me. Thomas Whitmore, her father's cousin, though he'd always treated her as property rather than family. When her father died owing him money, Thomas had dragged her to the auction block himself." "I paid her debt," Thomas said now, his voice oily. "That means she's mine to claim. The sheriff here's just helping me bring her home." "She's not going anywhere," Gabe said quietly, stepping between them. The sheriff frowned. "Easy now, Morrison. You've got no right to keep her if she's bound by contract." "Contract?" Gabe's tone was sharp. "You mean when he sold her like cattle?" Thomas's smile thinned. "Careful, mountain man. You don't want to make enemies in Millbrook. The law's on my side." Lily's voice trembled but steady. "No, it's not. You forged that contract, Thomas. My father never agreed to sell me. You just wanted the land he left me." "Land?" Gabe turned to her, stunned. Lily nodded slowly. "A small farm near the river. My father's dying wish was for me to keep it, but Thomas wanted it for himself." The sheriff shifted uneasily. "If that's true, Miss Whitmore, you'll need proof." "I have it," she said quietly. "In my mother's Bible. It's still hidden at the farm." Thomas's eyes flashed. "You shouldn't have said that." He lunged toward her, but Gabe caught his wrist mid-air. The strength in that grip made Thomas gasp. "Touch her again," Gabe said, voice low and dangerous, "and I'll bury you right here in my field." The sheriff stepped forward, hand hovering over his holster. "That's enough." "Then take him down the mountain," Gabe growled, "before I forget what restraint looks like." The sheriff hesitated, then nodded. "We'll ride back to town. But this isn't over. If she's lying, I'll have to come back with a warrant." "Do what you have to," Gabe said. As the riders disappeared down the trail, Lily sank to her knees, trembling. "He won't stop, Gabe. He never stops." Gabe crouched beside her, his hands firm on her shoulders. then neither will I. That evening, the storm broke. Rain lashed against the windows, thunder rolling through the valley like cannon fire. Lily sat by the hearth, staring into the flames. "I didn't mean to bring danger here," she whispered. "I just wanted to disappear." Gabe knelt beside her. "You didn't bring danger. You brought life." Tears filled her eyes. "If he takes me, he'll ruin everything. He'll take Emma's smile, your peace." He stopped her with a look. "He'll have to kill me first." She shook her head, sobbing. "Don't say that." "I mean it," Gabe said, his voice raw. "I lost one woman I loved. I won't lose another." Lily froze. The words hung in the air between them, fragile and fierce. "Gabe." He reached up, brushing a tear from her cheek with the gentleness of a man who'd learned how easily things break. "You don't have to be afraid anymore, not of him, not of anything." Outside, lightning split the sky. Inside, something just as powerful broke open. Not destruction, but the beginning of love. When morning came, the storm was gone, but the decision was made. Gabe would ride with Lily down to the valley, to her father's old farm. They would find that Bible, prove her innocence, and end Thomas Whitmore's hold on her forever. Emma hugged her tightly before they left. "You'll come back, right?" Lily kissed her forehead. "Always, my sweet girl." Gabe ruffled his daughter's hair. "Be good for Mrs. Harper till we return." Emma nodded solemnly. "Bring Lily Mommy home, Daddy." He smiled faintly. "That's the plan." As they rode away, the cabin grew small behind them, but the promise it held burned bright in both their hearts. The valley was green again, but there was nothing gentle in the air that morning. Storm clouds rolled low over the hills, pressing the scent of wet earth and pine down upon the trail. Gabe and Lily rode in silence, the only sound the steady rhythm of the horses and the whisper of the wind through tall grass. Every turn of the road brought them closer to Millbrook and to the man who meant to take her back. "You still sure about this?" Gabe asked quietly, eyes fixed ahead. Lily nodded. "I've been running all my life. I'm done hiding. I want my name back." He looked at her for a long moment, the woman who'd once trembled under other men's laughter, now sitting straight-backed and unafraid. "Then we'll get it." The Whitmore farm sat in a shallow bend of the river, small, weathered, but stubbornly standing. Vines climbed the porch, the windows long broken. Lily dismounted first, her boots crunching on the gravel path. "I haven't been here since Father died," she said softly. Inside, the air smelled of dust and old memories. She went straight to the fireplace, knelt, and pulled at a loose brick. Beneath it, wrapped in faded cloth, was the Bible. Her hand shook as she opened it. Between the pages was a folded sheet of parchment, the deed to the land, signed and sealed by her father's hand. "There," Gabe said quietly, "it's enough to bury his lies." But even as he spoke, the creak of wagon wheels echoed outside. Lily's blood ran cold. "He's here." The confrontation. Thomas Whitmore stepped through the doorway, flanked by Sheriff Pike and 2 armed men. Rain dripped from his hat brim, his smile thin and cruel. "Well," he drawled, "I was wondering when you'd come home." "Thomas," Lily said, voice steady, "you forged my father's signature. The land was never yours." Thomas laughed. "A dead man's signature doesn't change the law, girl. The sheriff here has a warrant. Says you're a thief who ran off with my property." "She's my wife," Gabe said, stepping forward, "and this land belongs to her. You lay a hand on her, and you'll answer to me." The sheriff hesitated. "Morrison, stand down. Don't make this worse." "Worse than selling a woman like cattle?" Gabe's voice cut like a whip. "You know the truth, Pike. You saw that auction. You saw how she begged for help." The sheriff shifted uneasily. "I follow the law, not sympathy." "Then maybe it's time the law remembered what justice looks like." Thomas sneered. "Enough talk." He motioned to his men. "Take her." One stepped forward, but Gabe moved faster. His rifle swung up, butt cracking across the man's jaw. The second fired, but Gabe's shot came first, sending him sprawling into the mud. "Stop him!" Thomas shouted, fumbling for his pistol. But before he could draw, Lily's voice rang out. "Thomas, you'll hang for this." She held the Bible high, the deed fluttering from its pages. "This is proof, my father's seal. The town will see it." Thomas froze, his face twisting. "You should have stayed sold," he hissed, then lunged. The gunshot echoed through the valley. Thomas staggered back, clutching his shoulder. The sheriff's smoking revolver hung at his side. "That's enough, Whitmore," Pike said grimly. "I've made enough mistakes in this town. You won't be another one." Thomas cursed, stumbling away as the sheriff disarmed him. "You'll regret this. You both will." But neither Gabe nor Lily moved to stop him. They stood together in the rain, breathless and shaking, the storm breaking overhead like a benediction. By the next morning, Millbrook had heard the story. Thomas Whitmore was in custody, charged with fraud, assault, and unlawful sale of persons. The sheriff himself brought the deed to the courthouse and swore under oath that Lily's signature on the sale contract had been forged. When the judge declared her free, Lily didn't weep. She simply turned to Gabe, eyes shining, and whispered, "It's over." He smiled faintly. "No, it's beginning." They rode home at sunset. The mountain peaks blazed crimson against the dying light. When the cabin came into view, Emma came running down the path, her laughter ringing through the trees. "Daddy! Lily Mommy!" Lily jumped off the horse just in time to catch the child in her arms. Gabe dismounted and stood watching them, the two hearts that had pulled him back to life. "Did you bring Mommy home for good?" Emma asked, face tilted up to the sky. Gabe met Lily's gaze. "Yes, sweetheart. She's home now." The mountain had never looked softer. Summer sunlight pooled across the clearing, painting the cabin in gold. The river hummed nearby, and the air was heavy with the scent of pine sap and fresh bread cooling on the sill. For the first time in years, peace wasn't something Gabe Morrison had to chase. It had come to him, quietly, through laughter and love. Lily was on the porch, braiding Emma's hair into two loose plaits, while the little girl squirmed and giggled. Gabe sat on the step sharpening his hunting knife, pretending not to listen to their chatter, but smiling every time Emma said, "Lily Mommy," as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "Daddy," Emma called, twisting to look at him. "Lily Mommy says my hair looks just like the sun." Gabe glanced up, meeting Lily's shy grin. "She's right," he said softly, "but hers looks warmer." Lily turned away, cheeks flushing pink. Emma laughed. "Daddy's being funny again." "Yeah," Lily murmured, "funny." But her smile lingered, small, secret, and full of meaning. After the trial, the townsfolk had changed. Some offered apologies, others only silence. But it didn't matter. Lily no longer cared what they thought. She had walked back into that courthouse as a fat girl sold for debt, and walked out as Lily Morrison, rightful owner of her father's land and mistress of her own life. At night, When the wind brushed through the trees, she often lay awake beside the fire, watching the shadows move across the walls and thinking of how far she'd come. Gabe noticed it too. "You sleep less now," he said one evening. "I don't need to dream any more," she whispered. "I'm already living one." He chuckled softly. "That's the first time I've heard you say something selfish." "Is it selfish to be happy?" "No," he said, voice rough with feeling. "It's brave." That night, after Emma fell asleep, Gabe found Lily sitting by the porch rail, watching fireflies drift over the meadow. The night smelled of rain and wild mint. "Can't sleep?" he asked. She smiled faintly. "Too much quiet again?" He sat beside her, elbows resting on his knees. "You used to be afraid of the quiet." "I was afraid of being forgotten," she said softly. "But here, the quiet feels like it's listening." They sat in silence for a moment, the cicadas buzzing like the heartbeat of the woods. Then Gabe said, "I meant what I said to the sheriff, that you're my wife. I didn't say it just to scare him." Lily turned toward him, startled. "Gabe, I know I'm not a rich man. I don't have a town name or soft hands, but I've got this mountain, this home, and my heart. They're yours if you'll have them." Her breath caught. "You don't have to say that out of gratitude." He shook his head. "It's not gratitude, it's love." The word hung there, heavy and beautiful. Tears welled in Lily's eyes. "You love me?" He reached out, fingers trembling slightly as they brushed her cheek. "Since the day Emma asked me to buy the sad lady on the auction block." She laughed through her tears. "You make it sound so romantic." "It is," he said simply. "You were the first light I saw after years of darkness." And when he kissed her, it wasn't hurried or desperate. It was quiet, steady, and certain. The kind of kiss that feels like a promise made to both heaven and earth. The next morning, Emma burst into their room with her hair wild and her feet muddy. "Daddy! Lily, Mommy! There's a deer in the garden!" Lily laughed and pulled her close. "We'll have to share our apples then." Gabe leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, eyes warm. "Looks like the mountain finally approves." Lily turned to him, her smile radiant. "Maybe it always did. Maybe it was just waiting for us." He stepped forward, wrapping an arm around her shoulders as Emma darted outside into the sun. Together, they watched their daughter chase butterflies through the grass, a picture of joy neither of them had dared to dream of before. And when Gabe whispered, "You're home now," Lily rested her head against his chest and answered, "Yes, I am." The mountain wind carried their laughter through the pines as if the earth itself exhaled in relief. Two broken souls mended, a family made whole, and a love quiet as dawn but strong enough to last forever. Sometimes love doesn't thunder through a doorway. Sometimes it walks quietly up a mountain road, carrying a child's laughter and the memory of a promise. Gabe Morrison had built his life out of wood, stone, and sorrow. Lily Rose had been broken down to nothing but shame and a name no one respected. Yet all it took was one small voice, a 3-year-old's innocent cry, "Daddy, buy the sad lady," to change everything. Because love doesn't always begin with beauty. It begins with mercy. It begins when someone chooses to see your worth before you can see it yourself. For Gabe, it was Lily's courage that healed the hollow parts of him. For Lily, it was Gabe's steadiness that turned fear into peace. And for Emma, it was proof that sometimes children understand what grown-ups forget, that kindness can build a home stronger than any timber or stone. Wherever you are listening from, a quiet room, a long road, a night train cutting through rain, maybe this story found you for a reason. Maybe you've lost something too. Maybe you're waiting for someone to look at you and say, "You're safe here." If you still believe that love can bloom in the unlikeliest places, stay with us. Because every time you listen, comment, or share your heart, you keep stories like this alive. Stories that remind us that even in a hard world, tenderness still wins. Tell me, where in the world are you hearing this story tonight? And if you still believe that broken people can build beautiful lives, don't scroll away. The next story is already waiting for you.